To create and to destroy often go hand in hand. When something is destroyed, it could lead to the creation of something else. So, when something is created, what could be destroyed as a result? With that being said, I will say spoiler warnings for those who have not seen episode 12 of RWBY Volume 8. I won't be showing the episode or any clips from it in this video, simply images of the episode and analyzing the events that take place. I will leave a link in the description below so you guys can go to Rooster Teeth first, watch the episode there, and support the series that we all love. Now, the episode begins with a number of Manta ships heading towards the city of Atlas. Presumably, a few of them were just decoys to distract the Grimm still surrounding the city and allow one of them to make it. The one ship carrying Jean, Nora, Ren, and a few others. Now, I think it's likely that they got this ship from the city of Atlas, took it outside of the signal range, and then brought it back in to enact their plan, because I don't think they would really have time to do anything else. Given that the last time we saw them, they were at the Schnee Manor, with only an hour to respond to Ironwood's ultimatum before Mantle is blown off the face of Remnant. And after the events of last episode, the conversations that happened, and having to stop Penny from succumbing to the virus, that probably ate up, 15 to 20 minutes of their time? So they really didn't have that much time remaining to not only formulate their plan and coordinate it, but put it into action before Ironwood delivered the bomb. And they couldn't directly go to Mantle either because Ironwood was watching it with drones. And if he saw anything other than what he demanded, he would have delivered the bomb anyways. So I think that's the most likely scenario. They got the ship from the battlefield on Atlas where Ironwood's military was concentrated, brought it out of the signal range, and then back in. But as they are flying back towards the city, there is something very notable about that. We still see Monstra's corpse. It's been, over a half hour, 40 minutes now, and Monstra's corpse is still there. It hasn't disintegrated yet, and from what we can see, there is no black smoke rising from it, showing that it's in the process of disintegrating. There was a lot of damage done to it, but with this being the case, that tells me that Monstra's corpse isn't actually a corpse yet. That Monstra is still alive, either by not having enough damage to actually kill it, or by Salem keeping it alive for some other purpose, using the Grimm liquid or just the Grimm body itself for something else. I think that Monstra may still have a part to play this volume yet, but we'll have to wait and see if that is actually the case. We actually then see the people of Mantle and the Happy Huntresses. They have left the safety of the mines and have congregated once again in the slums of the crater beneath Atlas. So they were obviously filled in on the plan by Jean and everyone else, likely just contacting them through scrolls as they couldn't actually go to the city in person, so now they're just standing by. And we see the bomb actually being loaded on a ship prepared to take it to Mantle, but someone is interfering with it before it can actually be fully loaded on board. And we see Ironwood and the rest of the Aesops waiting at the entrance to the academy for Penny to arrive. Harriet seems completely content with putting anyone down that arrives alongside Penny. Vine is actually the one who seems a bit exasperated with the current situation that they're in and reflects on everything that led them there. But Ironwood gets a notification that Crow and Robin are in the hangar, either interfering with the payload delivery or just trying to find a way for themselves to escape. Harriet wants to take the rest of the Aesops and go deal with them because she's been itching for the chance to do that, but someone needs to stay with Ironwood. Luckily, Winter arrives at that moment and volunteers for the position. So the Aesops go to take care of Crow and Robin, leaving Winter and Ironwood alone. Winter tries to talk to Ironwood, but he shuts that down really quick, and they are then interrupted by Penny arriving. Ironwood's a bit surprised that Penny arrived alone and is pointing a gun at them, which is an interesting weapon. It is kind of an addition to both of his revolvers of due process. They're both locked into this weapon, and presumably this would give him enough firepower to deal with Penny, who's a maiden as well as even just normally has more firepower than average, but I don't know why he wouldn't have just brought some other weapon with him instead of locking his two revolvers into it. Anyways, Penny has arrived, Ironwood surprised that she came alone, and hands a pair of gravity bolas over to Winter so she can restrain Penny. Ironwood then lowers his weapon, goes over to Penny, and says that she did the right thing. Only thing is, this wasn't Penny. The illusion fades, and it is in fact Emerald who stands before Ironwood. She kicks the weapon out of Ironwood's hand, grabs it, and uses her semblance to disappear, so Ironwood can't get any of his weapons back. With both of his pistols locked in there, he is now pretty much disarmed, though he's plenty dangerous on his own. Essentially, what Emerald did was mask herself, all of the people that were with her, which is all of Team Alpine, Jean, Nora, Ren, and Oscar, as well as the entire ship, as it flew into Atlas. The range on her semblance is very impressive now. She was able to mask herself and the ship from that far of a distance away from both Ironwood and Winter, as well as presumably anyone else that might be there, though I think it was just Ironwood and Winter. That's still extremely impressive, and Emerald's semblance is really powerful right now. But with Emerald taking Ironwood's weapons, everyone jumps into action to attack Ironwood, and without his weapons, and completely outnumbered 5-1, he's pretty much screwed. And I say 5-1 because Emerald already disappeared, and the 5 people fighting against him is Jean, Ren, Nora, Oscar, and Winter. Winter has finally decided that Ironwood needs to be stopped. And while this entire fight is going on, the Aesops arrive to deal with Robin and Crow, but don't really get to do anything as Marrow is there to stop them. He simply activates his semblance, stops all 3 of them in their tracks, and that fight is pretty much over before it even began. But the fight between Ironwood and Jean's group is, well, this one's pretty quick as well. Ironwood doesn't really stand much of a chance as he's being attacked from all angles, and it is Winter that deals the most damage to him. Winter summons her Manticore to charge Ironwood, and as he blocks that, she slams him with a bunch of ice dust. Oscar then jumps in to attack him, and Winter ducks under his arm and gives a final slash to Ironwood, which I'm very curious about. It was some amazing animation. The screen kind of goes dark for a moment, a bunch of flashes rain out, and then Ironwood drops. His aura's broken and he's just unconscious. I have a feeling that was just a stylistic animation choice, which it was fantastic. I loved it, but I'm also curious to know if there was something else going on there, if Winter actually has a new technique with the flashes that rang out. Was it something that was involving hard light dust or something like that? We do know that each of her blades have a single type of dust within them. Maybe that was Winter utilizing that, though there wasn't any specific dust effects, but having hard light dust in that attack might have been interesting. Though we did already see Winter use 2 types of dust in this battle. She used ice dust to attack Ironwood and lightning dust to power up Nora, so if there is only one type of dust in each of her blades, it probably wasn't hard light dust. But anyways, Ironwood is now taken out and the plan moves into phase 2. We then get a bit of a flashback to the Schnee Manor to see how everything was coordinated. Just after Penny had fought off the virus thanks to Jean boosting her aura, well, they decided that maybe opening the vault would be a risk worth considering. And just as they are thinking of using the Staff of Creation to help save everyone in Atlas, Weiss gets a message from Winter. Winter didn't actually imprison Marrow, and she was the one on the elevator that Crow and Robin ran into. I really want to see more of Marrow and Winter interacting, because their little interactions this episode, however brief, were still very entertaining to see. But with this coordination now, everyone is discussing what exactly it is that they can do. Because even if they are able to get the relic and use it, Atlas is going to fall. They need some way to get everyone to safety. And they want to save not only everyone in Atlas and Mantle, but Penny as well. Jean suggests trying to teleport everyone from Atlas and Mantle to a completely different kingdom entirely, but Oscar says that it's not just some magic wand that you can wave and have all of your wishes come true. You have to give specific instructions to the spirit of the relic. Just like Jin, the Staff of Creation has a spirit within it, which seemed fairly obvious, not only by the opening of the volume itself and the mist surrounding the relics, but just that why would the Relic of Knowledge be different than any of the others? You'd still have to be able to give specific instructions to the relics. They aren't just going to read your mind on what you want to be done, except maybe the Relic of Choice. That one's possibly a bit of unique on its own, but still, at least for knowledge, creation, destruction, there is going to be a spirit within it, and I'm pretty sure that the Relic of Choice is going to have a spirit as well. But this one is apparently a character, and you have to give exactly what you want, blueprints, everything for him to create, otherwise it may not be exactly what you desire. Whitley, luckily, knows the schematics for Atlas, and might be able to help with some of this. So the overall plan ended up being for Jean's group to take care of Ironwood, while Crow, Robin, and Marrow, thanks to Winter's coordination, took care of the bomb headed for Mantle as well as the Aesops, and for Penny and Team RWBY to head to the vault under Atlas Academy. Thanks to the convenient hole that Oscar left in the base of Atlas, they had a direct line to the vault, and upon opening the vault, well, the virus within Penny would tell her to terminate herself. So, once they arrived and opened the vault, they quickly rushed in to grab the Relic of Creation, stopping time everywhere and putting a pause on Penny's termination. And it is here that we meet Ambrosius, the spirit of the Relic of Creation. And he is a character. I honestly love this guy, and he might be in contention for Best Boy of RWBY, depending on what more we see of him, because he has a lot of personality, is very eccentric, sarcastic, etc., and he's just great all around. One thing that is interesting, RWBY did not have to call out Ambrosius's name to summon him. She just grabbed the relic and, I think, thought of summoning him, and he appeared. Didn't have to call out his name or anything, which is curious why it's different than the Relic of Knowledge, where you had to call out Jin's name, but perhaps this means that you might not need to call out Jin's name. You just need to have the desire to ask her a question and she could be summoned. If that is the case, then that definitely opens up the possibility for Neo to be able to summon Jin. Just something to think about. Upon summoning Ambrosius, however, they tell him that their friend is dying. And he quickly reminds them that, I'm sure you know that reviving the dead is something I can't do. And RWBY tells him, well, she's not exactly a normal girl. Piques his curiosity, and Ambrosius flies over to Penny, conjures up a little monocle, looks at her, and is very impressed by her technology. And he exclaims that he wants to meet the person who created her. So I think that's kind of foreshadowing that, well, maybe Ambrosius might meet Pietro at some point. If the staff of creation is put into the hands of an engineer, someone that can come up with their own schematics and can let their imagination run wild, I am really curious as to what he could create. But he also sees the problem when looking at Penny, that there is something eating away at her, trying to destroy her. So he goes back over to Team RWBY and says, I'm sure you have some clever way to try to save her life, but I'm going to let you know this now. I will do exactly what you say, and do not be upset if it's not what you had hoped. But they had prepared for this, knowing that Ambrosius would need an extensive knowledge of whatever it is he's creating to create it accurately, and that their wording would be incredibly important. They brought Penny's schematics with them. And as they showed them to Ambrosius, RWBY makes her request to have a new version of Penny made using her already existing robotic parts, including the virus, which is a really interesting and intricate way of doing things. Essentially, they want to have Penny as she is, but take all of the robotic parts, including the virus, and use those to make another version of Penny, leaving everything else behind. In other words, her soul and everything attached to that, including the maiden powers. Everything that makes Penny, Penny. So she'd still have her soul, her aura, the maiden powers, and a semblance whenever she awakens one. So Ambrosius is very impressed by them coming up with this idea, but also questions what exactly would remain with a soul left without a physical body. And Ambrosius doesn't exactly know how to deal with that, but part of the rules he is operating under is that he cannot destroy. So RWBY is using that to her advantage, simply telling him to be creative. He has an idea, but he doesn't know how much of it would be his work and how much of it would be Penny's soul, who Penny is coming to the surface. But Team RWBY has faith in their friend, that this is the only option available to them, this is their best course of action, so they tell Ambrosius to go through with it. And so he does. He puts his powers of creation to use and creates a second Penny. But as he finishes his creation and disappears, time resumes and Atlas begins to fall, being the previous thing that Ambrosius had created. Jean, Ren, Nora, Oscar, and Emerald had been waiting for this, however. They snuck in to the Atlas facilities, and once Atlas started to fall, they decided to contact everyone in Atlas and Mantle to let them know what was going on. Jean is able to mess with the systems and start projecting his image live to everyone's scrolls. He is able to tell them that Atlas is falling, but is cut off immediately after that. The entire cross-continental communication systems have apparently went down, and kingdom-wide communications are now cut off, and they have no idea why. I'm gonna take a wild guess and say Watts is likely the problem here. If he was able to listen in to Ironwood and Ruby's conversation, he might know the entire plan that has been put into motion, considering that Weiss probably communicated it to Winter through their scrolls, as well as whoever it was that contacted the Happy Huntresses in Mantle. So Watts probably knows about this and intentionally cut off all transmissions. That's my best guess. Maybe there was something that happened at Amity, maybe Salem did something as well, but yeah, communications are cut off and everyone is probably going to panic. We then cut to the prison cells, where we see that Winter has brought Ironwood there, right next to Jacques. So Jacques now has a new cellmate, and, you know, if things weren't immediately going to transition to something else, I would have loved to see a scene of Jacques and Ironwood being stuck in prison together, because that would have been just beautiful to see. They hate each other, and they hate the situations that they're in, and that would have been, well, kind of beautiful, because Ironwood couldn't do anything to Jacques, Jacques couldn't do anything to Ironwood, not that he could anyways, but it still would have been amazing to see. Jacques heard Jean's message, though, that Atlas is falling, and Winter just decides to leave the room. He starts panicking, saying, "You're not gonna leave me behind, right?" Well, Winter says that no. Once everything is put into motion, we will come back and make sure that both of you, Ironwood and Jacques, are safe. Jacques thanks her, but Winter cuts him off, saying, "Wasn't my idea, Weiss was the one who wanted to do it," meaning that Winter was completely fine with leaving Jacques there to die. So, I mean, makes sense, but still, Winter's acting a bit cold-hearted as well. We then cut back to the vault under Atlas Academy, where Penny has become a real girl, and standing beside her is just a robotic version of herself that has the virus within it, and is malfunctioning and eventually drops to the floor and just self-terminates. But Penny herself is a real girl, and the first thing she does with her new body is feels the warmth of a hug for the first time, as she hugs RWBY and then proceeds to hug every other member of Team RWBY, which was very heartwarming to see. And with Penny now being a real girl, this is something that I mentioned in quite a few videos before. Didn't exactly happen the way I thought it would, as I thought Pietro would end up sacrificing himself in the last portion of his soul to give that revival portion to Penny, because, you know, Ambrosius can't actually revive the dead, but since Penny would still have her core, her memories, etc., Pietro would sacrifice himself, and Staff of Creation would create a new body for her, but that wouldn't have been permanent like this one is. It's very interesting how everything ended up working out, but I'll get to that at the end of this episode. They then decide to summon Ambrosius again to put the last stage of their plan into motion, and to kind of make sure that this revival of Penny, or this transference of Penny's soul to a real body, would actually be permanent like they're hoping. They ask Ambrosius if it is possible for him to make a bunch of doors all across Atlas to a single point in Vacuo, intending to evacuate everyone in Atlas and Mantle to get to Vacuo. And his response is absolutely amazing. Sure, I can do that. All I need is the coordinates of all of the different doors, as well as, the endpoint in Vacuo, as well as the knowledge of how to warp space and time to account for all of these doors and the massive amount of traffic going through them to this single point in Vacuo. So, yeah, about what they expected, so they decided that they needed a waypoint, a middle ground for everyone to enter into and then get transferred to Vacuo. And the idea that they came up with was to create a space similar to the vaults. And again, with the creation of the vaults, I made an entire theory about this in the past. I'm wondering what is sustaining the vaults in the first place. Because obviously now, with the Relic of Creation being summoned, being used, it can only create one thing at a time. That rule was solid. Ozpin didn't lie about what the Relic of Creation was able to do. But that also means that the Relic of Creation didn't create the vaults themselves. So I'm curious as to what it is that is actually sustaining them. If this is what Ozpin put a large portion of his magic towards to create the vaults themselves and house the relics or what have you, but I'm curious how everything's going to play out with them. But Ambrosius is impressed that they came up with this idea, but with what he says, you're either smarter or much more foolish than you realize. Meaning that either they know what they're dealing with, or they don't know what they're dealing with. At least that's the way I interpret that, and I don't think any of Team RWBY really understands what these vaults are or what they entail. The alternate space that's created, so there's going to be some risks involved, and, well, things are going to play out inside this space over the next couple episodes. But Ambrosius does go through with that creation, creates the doors all throughout Atlas and Mantle, and creates a space in between, using the schematics provided by Whitley and then by Weiss to Ambrosius of the interconnectivity of Atlas. Using, I believe, kind of the snowshoe shipping company and all the tubes from it to kind of orchestrate things that way. Multiple different portals and paths open up that all lead to a central platform, and that one central door that would lead to Vacuo. So, with that, everyone can now pass through it. But no one was really informed of the plan because communications were shut off, so they're all going to have to kind of take a leap of faith. Joanna and the Happy Huntresses had to have known what the plan was, as Joanna immediately walks through the portal and lands on one of the platforms. So, she knew what the plan was. They were expecting this, but still kind of fantastical to see. Regardless, all of the people of Mantle are going to be able to evacuate through freely, and then, we'll see what happens to the people of Atlas. The body created by Ambrosius from Penny's existing robotic parts then disappears, and Ambrosius gives one final dire warning about this space that they created. Do not fall. And with that, he disappears. The plan, in the meantime, being for everyone to head to Vacuo, hoping that they had thought of everything. But with this being where the episode ends, I'm going to say that obviously they had not, because there's one final image of Cinder. As Ruby says, hopefully we thought of everything. They created portals to everyone in Atlas and Mantle, presumably, meaning everyone including Cinder, Watts, and Neo. There was no way to specify who was allowed to pass through the portals or anything like that. And considering that they wanted portals to evacuate everyone in Atlas and Mantle, what if there is one or two people that are stranded in some place of Atlas or some place of Mantle that were left behind in a household or something like that? Is a doorway going to open up specifically for them? I would think yes, that they want to evacuate every single person. Meaning that we will likely see Pietro and Maria again, assuming that they survived the crash of Amity. A door is going to appear for them, they are going to walk through, Pietro and Penny are going to be reunited next episode in this in-between space, this realm between worlds. But the reunion won't last for long because Cinder's going to follow, she's going to be after the Maiden Powers, Penny doesn't have her robotic enhancements to be able to fight back as well as she did beforehand, so yeah, things are not going to go that well. Someone is obviously going to fall. Cinder fall being the cause of it. I like the little indication there. Plus, this could also mean there's a bit of foreshadowing from last season, Volume 7, Episode 12, at Clover's death, where Crow says Ironwood will take the fall. Well, a place for him to fall would certainly be in this space. And another thing, with these portals opening up to every individual, could there be one that's going to open up in Ironwood and Jacques' prison cell, and they're just going to be able to travel through to the space that way? Well, possibly. With Ironwood traveling through there, though, I think he'll finally realize that he was wrong in the way he was doing things, that Team RWBY had thought this through quite a bit more than he anticipated, and at that point might make the self-sacrificing moment to try to take care of Cinder or someone, and if anyone does fall from this platform, they're going to be stuck there for eternity. The second that the staff is used to create anything else, well, this space is going to disappear, and they will be trapped within it. Not to mention, if they just fall off the platforms, they'll just be falling for eternity, because there's no secondary level or anything like that. It's just space. This is just a pathway created in nothingness, pretty much. So they would just fall and be gone. Whoever does fall is likely going to just not exist anymore. Unless, of course, they use the Relic of Creation to try to create another door right below where these people are falling. I'm sure there's a way that they could word it where they might be able to save someone falling, but we'll have to see. Now, there's also a chance that a door could form in front of Salem, because technically she would count in everyone that is on Atlas and Mantle currently. So there could be a portal made specifically for Salem. She might wander through and then start wreaking havoc there. Though if she was to fall off the platform, being trapped for eternity in that space might be a good way to imprison Salem for a time, at least, and might be effective for eternity, possibly? I don't know. There's a lot of different ways that things could work out, and a lot of interesting things overall. But now getting back to the Staff of Creation and, well, the creation of Penny's new body. They requested from Ambrosius to create a new version of Penny using the robotic parts that already existed. So that was what they requested. That was what was created by Ambrosius. But since that was what was requested, and he wasn't allowed to destroy Penny's soul, Ambrosius then created a physical body of flesh and bone for Penny's soul to remain within. The aura, everything to function within. That is still something that Ambrosius created, but it is not something that was requested by RWBY. And because of that, I think is the reason that Penny's body remains. That with Penny's soul, it is now her body. It is her physical form, and it is something separate than being, well, Ambrosius's creation. At least that's the way I understand it. But one thing that I don't really understand, the rule that RWBY took advantage of to create this extra physical body for Penny was that Ambrosius wasn't allowed to destroy anything, and so he had to create something extra for Penny's soul to exist within. But then these robotic parts that already existed were then used to create this separate body. And that separate body was then destroyed after Ambrosius created something else. These robotic parts already existed in the world, but Ambrosius destroyed them. Or at least the result of him making another creation resulted in them being destroyed, which I find very odd. The robotic parts already existed. Why would they have been destroyed? I would have thought that the robotic corpse that remained would have stayed in the vault. Kind of symbolic on how Vernal's corpse stayed in the vault under Haven Academy. Well, Penny's robotic corpse would have stayed there as well. And I thought that might end up being foreshadowing for what's going to happen in the other vaults. But instead, it disappeared, and I find that very strange without really an explanation for it. Yes, it was something that was created by Ambrosius, but it was created out of existing parts. It wasn't something that he had to, snap into existence or anything like that. So I find that very strange, but I'm really curious to see what is going to happen next episode. I loved seeing the fight between everyone and Ironwood, how he was completely overwhelmed, and that final attack by Winter was definitely a highlight of the episode. But the real highlight of the episode was Ambrosius himself. He is an amazing character. I hope we get to see more of him, because it seems he can be summoned at any point to just create anything. And we're going to have to see him at least one more time, because they're going to have to get rid of the space that was created to make sure that Salem doesn't follow them if given the opportunity, or if she doesn't follow them before they close it, etc. So this is going to be fun to see how everything plays out. Only 2 more episodes remain of Volume 8, and I'm curious to know what you guys think of this episode. Penny finally becoming a real girl, Ambrosius acting like the Blue Fairy in that respect, creating that body for her and allowing her to live as she is. Now, I'm curious to see when Pietro and Penny reunite, how heartwarming that will be and how long it'll last before Cinder interrupts it, and Pietro might end up sacrificing himself at that moment. I really hope not, though. Perhaps it'll be Emerald who steps in to save Pietro from Cinder, and in doing so, cut ties with Cinder completely, because that interaction is probably going to happen next episode as well. Emerald and Cinder are both going to be in this space, and Emerald has now switched sides. I really hope that Emerald doesn't flip-flop back to Cinder's side and stays with the protagonist's team, because I really like seeing her have this redemption. And I don't really think Cinder would be able to convince her to come back in any way. I think Emerald finally realizes that Cinder doesn't really care, but we'll have to see how all that plays out. Another interesting thing that I noted in this episode, now that we have seen 2 of the vaults, we've seen the vault in Atlas and the vault in Mistral, there's something unique about them. And I think, well, this will be confirmed when we see the other vaults, but I think the vaults themselves are mirroring the kingdoms on the opposite side of Remnant. In the vault in Mistral, it was a desert, like Vacuo. And in the vault in the frozen north of Atlas, it was a lush green prairie, like what might be seen in the Kingdom of Vale. I think that's what each of these vaults are trying to symbolize. They're kind of polar opposites, almost, in the way that the kingdoms are oriented, because the kingdoms are pretty much oriented north, east, south, and west, so could be that type of thing, and I really want to see, it will be confirmed when we see the next of the vaults, which that would mean the vault in Vacuo is probably going to be some mountainous region, perhaps, like Mistral is, and of course the vault in Beacon Academy is going to be like the frozen tundra, or something like that, but we'll have to see. And lastly, within the next couple of episodes, that also means we might see Team Coffee and Team Sun, as well as Theodore and Professor Rumpel, all of the people of Shade Academy, very soon. Perhaps the end of next episode or episode 14 of this volume. It might wait until the after credits scene of episode 14, but we'll have to see. It's going to be soon, though. A lot of stuff to look forward to, and I really want to know what you guys think. Make sure to let me know down in the comments below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to see more RWBY analyses, RWBY theories, RWBY content in general, make sure to subscribe and join the Guild of the Eternal Flame. Tweet me at Phoenix Knight 7, and I'll see you guys in the next video.